Vanessa Carmichael's laugh cut through the business-class cabin like broken glass. "Oh, honey, are you sure you're in the right cabin? Economy is that way." Her manicured finger pointed backward, diamond bracelet catching the overhead lights as she gestured at the man in the worn flannel shirt. Owen Fletcher didn't look up. His hands moved in silent patterns, signing to his 8-year-old daughter Iris, who clutched a faded stuffed rabbit against her chest. The other passengers joined in, smirks exchanged, whispers shared, phones tilted just enough to capture what they called economy behavior in their premium space. For the next 30 minutes, mockery filled the air. Owen stayed silent, shoulders curved protectively around his daughter, absorbing every insult without a word. But here's what none of them knew. Silence isn't always surrender. Sometimes it's the calm before everything changes. And the man in seat 3A was about to shatter every assumption they'd made. The boarding had started like any other flight. Owen guided Iris down the jetway, her small hand tucked in his, her other arm wrapped around the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 3. The rabbit's fur had faded from white to dingy grey, one ear hung by a thread, but Iris refused to let it go. It was the last gift her mother had given her before the accident. Owen understood that kind of holding on better than anyone. When they reached seat 3A in business class, Owen lifted their canvas backpack into the overhead bin. The bag was old, patched with duct tape in 2 places, but it held everything they needed. Inside were Iris's coloring books, her favorite snacks, and the paperwork for Dr. Morrison's appointment in Los Angeles. That appointment was everything, the last chance for Iris to qualify for the hearing technology trial. If they missed this one, there wouldn't be another opportunity for at least 2 years. Owen settled Iris by the window and fastened her seatbelt with practiced hands. She looked up at him, brown eyes wide with the anxiety that always came before flights. Her hands moved in quick signs. "Scared, Daddy?" He signed back slowly, reassuringly. "I'm right here. You're safe. Always safe with me." She nodded, but her grip on the rabbit tightened. Owen pulled out her noise-cancelling headphones and gently placed them over her ears. The small hearing aid behind her left ear caught the light for just a moment. That's when Vanessa appeared in the aisle, announced by sharp Louboutin clicks and overpowering Chanel No. 5. She stopped at row 3, perfectly shaped eyebrows rising as she took in Owen's flannel and Iris's simple cotton dress. The judgment in her eyes was immediate and absolute. Owen had seen that look before. It never got easier, but he'd learned not to react. Some battles weren't worth fighting, especially not in front of Iris. Vanessa slid into seat 3C across the aisle, placing her Birkin bag in the seat beside her until a flight attendant politely asked her to stow it. She complied with an exaggerated sigh, then immediately pulled out her phone. Within seconds she was on a call, voice pitched loud enough for everyone to hear. "Yes, darling, I'm in business class." Well, mostly business class. There seems to be some confusion about who belongs here. Her eyes flickered toward Owen as she said it. Troy boarded next, a man in his early 40s with the self-satisfied smirk of someone who measured worth in stock portfolios. He took the seat beside Vanessa, and within minutes they were bonding over shared irritation. "I pay good money for this experience," Troy muttered, loud enough for Owen to hear. "You'd think they'd have standards." Vanessa laughed, that crystalline sound designed to cut. "Standards are so passé these days. Anyone can buy a ticket, apparently." Pauline arrived last, settling into the seat directly behind Vanessa, with the rigid posture of someone who'd spent years judging others. She leaned forward immediately, joining the conversation like a sport she'd trained for. "Is that child wearing a hearing aid? How unfortunate. And in business class, too." The 3 of them exchanged glances, a silent agreement forming between strangers united by superiority. Owen felt Iris tense beside him. Even with headphones on, she could sense the cabin's energy, the way eyes kept sliding toward them with barely concealed disdain. Her hands moved in small, nervous gestures. They don't like us. Owen's heart clenched. He signed back firmly. They don't know us. That's different. We have every right to be here. But even as he reassured her, part of him wondered if this trip had been a mistake. The flight attendant approached with the beverage cart. Denise had kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. "What can I get for you folks?" she asked warmly. Owen ordered apple juice for Iris and water for himself. As Denise handed over the drinks, her eyes lingered on Owen's face, a flicker of recognition crossing her features. But she said nothing, just moved on to Vanessa, who ordered champagne with the air of someone proving a point. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Iris gripped Owen's hand tighter. The engines roared to life, and despite the headphones, she could feel vibrations through her whole body. Her breathing quickened. Owen recognized the signs of panic approaching. He shifted toward her, creating a protective wall between Iris and the cabin. His hands moved in familiar patterns they'd practiced 100 times. "Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe out." But as Iris struggled to regulate her breathing, a small sound escaped her lips. It was barely audible, a tiny whimper of fear, but in the hushed cabin it carried. Vanessa's head snapped around. "Oh, for God's sake! Denise? Denise!" The flight attendant appeared quickly. "Yes, ma'am?" Vanessa gestured toward Iris with an elegant wave. "Can you do something about this? Some of us are trying to work, and that noise is incredibly disruptive." Denise's expression tightened, but she maintained professional composure. "Ma'am, the child is just nervous about takeoff. It's completely normal. She'll settle down once we're in the air." Vanessa wasn't satisfied. "I didn't pay $3,000 to listen to that. Isn't there some policy about disruptive passengers?" The word hung in the air like an accusation. Troy nodded agreement. "She has a point. If the kid can't handle flying, maybe they shouldn't be in business class." Owen felt anger rising in his chest, hot and fierce, but he forced it down. Getting into a confrontation would only make things worse for Iris. Instead, he focused entirely on his daughter, hands continuing their gentle movements, expression calm despite the storm inside. Iris's breathing was slowing, her panic receding under the steady rhythm of his signs. "That's it, sweetheart. You're doing so well. So brave." She managed a small smile, and Owen felt the familiar ache. She looked so much like Carolyn. Denise returned to Owen's row, voice pitched for his ears only. "Sir, I apologize for the disruption. Is there anything I can get for your daughter?" Owen appreciated the kindness. "No, thank you. She'll be fine in a few minutes. She just needs time to adjust." Denise nodded, and as she turned to leave, she paused. "Mr. Fletcher, I hope you have a peaceful flight, sir." There was weight in her tone, meaning Owen couldn't quite interpret. As the plane lifted off, Iris pressed her face against the window, watching New York shrink below. The clouds swallowed the city, and her breathing finally evened completely. Owen relaxed incrementally, though awareness of the hostile atmosphere never fully faded. He pulled out a coloring book from the seat pocket and handed it to Iris with crayons. She selected purple and began coloring with intense concentration, tongue poking out slightly the way it always did when she focused. Vanessa had pulled out her laptop but wasn't actually working. She kept glancing over, expression mixing irritation with something else. Curiosity, maybe, or confusion about why Owen wasn't reacting to her provocations. Most people either fought back or cowered when faced with her brand of social warfare. Owen's complete indifference seemed to unsettle her. She leaned toward Troy, whispering something that made him chuckle and look in Owen's direction. The beverage service came around again, and Vanessa made a show of ordering a second champagne. As Denise poured it, Vanessa held up her phone, angling it to capture herself with the flute. "Business class living," she narrated brightly, then deliberately shifted the angle to include Owen and Iris in the background, though the standards have certainly dropped. She posted immediately, and Owen saw little heart icons begin accumulating. He said nothing, but his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. 30 minutes into the flight, Iris needed the restroom. Owen unbuckled both seatbelts and stood, gently guiding her into the aisle. As they passed Vanessa's row, Iris stumbled slightly over the bag Vanessa had accidentally left protruding into the aisle. Iris caught herself, but her elbow knocked Vanessa's armrest, jostling the champagne glass. A few drops spilled onto the tray table, nowhere near Vanessa's clothes, but the CEO reacted as if doused in acid. "Are you kidding me?" Vanessa shot to her feet, voice rising to a pitch that drew every eye in business class. "This is Armani. Do you have any idea how much this suit costs?" She rounded on Owen, face flushed with genuine anger now, not just performative disdain. "This is exactly why people like you don't belong here. You can't even control your child. She's a hazard." Iris shrank back against Owen, eyes filling with tears. Her hands moved frantically. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Owen felt something shift inside him. He could tolerate mockery directed at himself. He'd endured worse in his years of service. But watching his daughter shrink under this woman's cruelty crossed a line he couldn't ignore. He placed hands gently on Iris's shoulders and guided her behind him, then turned to face Vanessa fully. When he spoke, his voice was low and controlled, but there was steel underneath. "Her name is Iris. She's 8 years old. She's deaf, and she's braver than anyone in this cabin." He paused, letting the words settle. "We paid for these seats. We have every right to be here, and I'd appreciate it if you'd leave my daughter alone." The cabin went silent. Even the ambient engine hum seemed muted in the wake of Owen's words. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed, searching for a comeback, but Owen's calm intensity had thrown her off balance. She rallied quickly, though, voice dripping with condescension. "Oh, so now you speak? Well, congratulations on finally standing up for yourself. But speaking up doesn't change facts." Vanessa continued. "This is business class. Standards matter. Decorum matters. And if you can't maintain that, then maybe you should have chosen a different class of service." Troy stood, moving beside Vanessa in solidarity. "She's right. If your daughter can't handle the environment without disruptions, there are more appropriate places for her. This cabin is for professionals, for people who understand the value of a premium experience." Pauline added her voice to the chorus. "I've been flying business class for 20 years, and I've never seen such inappropriate behavior. That child is clearly not suited for this setting." Owen looked at each of them in turn, expression unchanged. "The only inappropriate behavior I've witnessed on this flight has been yours." He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. The quiet conviction in his tone was more powerful than any shout. "You've mocked a child, made assumptions about people you know nothing about, and demonstrated exactly what money can't buy." He took Iris's hand. "Excuse us, my daughter needs to use the restroom." He guided her past them, and the crowd of business-class passengers parted like water. In the small restroom, Owen knelt to Iris's level while she washed her hands. Her eyes were still wet with unshed tears. She signed to him, movements shaky. "Why are they so mean, Daddy? What did we do wrong?" Owen's heart broke a little more. He signed back carefully, making sure she could see every word clearly. "We didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart. Sometimes people are unkind because they're scared or unhappy. It's not about us. It's about what's happening inside them." Iris considered this. "Do you think they're sad?" Owen smiled sadly. "Maybe. Sad or lonely or afraid. Hurt people hurt people." Iris nodded slowly, processing this wisdom beyond her years. Owen kissed her forehead. Ready to go back? She nodded, squaring her small shoulders in a gesture of courage that made Owen's chest tighten with pride. When they returned to their seats, the atmosphere had somehow grown even more toxic. Vanessa had clearly spent the intervening minutes rallying her allies. As Owen and Iris sat down, she leaned across the aisle, voice pitched for maximum audience. You know what I find fascinating? The audacity. Here you are, clearly struggling financially based on your appearance, somehow scraping together enough for business class tickets. I wonder if you used some charity program. Airlines do that sometimes, don't they? Pity upgrades for the less fortunate? Owen didn't respond. He focused on getting Iris settled, making sure her headphones were comfortable, opening a package of crackers for her. His silence seemed to infuriate Vanessa more than any argument could have. She turned to her phone, typing rapidly, and Owen knew she was posting about them again. Sure enough, moments later she held up her screen, showing Troy something that made him laugh. The cruelty was casual, thoughtless, the kind that came from people who'd never had to consider the impact of their words. But what Vanessa and her companions didn't see was the conversation happening at the front of the cabin. Denise had approached another flight attendant, a younger man named Marcus, with an urgent expression. I need you to check the manifest again. Seat 3A, Owen Fletcher. Marcus pulled up information on his tablet, eyes widening as he read. This says he's listed as a consultant, booked by the Department of Homeland Security. Denise nodded slowly. That's what I thought I remembered. We need to inform the captain. It's protocol. In the cockpit, Captain Ronald Hayes was monitoring a situation that had his full attention. The hydraulic pressure readings were fluctuating in a pattern he'd never seen in 23 years of flying. It wasn't critical yet, but it was trending in a direction that made his palms sweat. His co-pilot Janet had noticed it too. Sir, System 1 is showing intermittent pressure drops. System 2 is compensating, but if this continues... She didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew what happened if they lost both primary hydraulic systems. Ron's hand hovered over the radio, preparing to contact air traffic control, when there was a knock at the cockpit door. He checked the security monitor and saw Denise's face. What is it? He asked through the intercom. Denise's voice came through, tight with urgency. Captain, I need to inform you about a passenger. Owen Fletcher in seat 3A. According to the manifest, he's a Department of Homeland Security consultant, FAA clearance level 5. I thought you should know, given... She trailed off, but Ron understood, given the situation developing with the hydraulics. Ron felt something loosen in his chest, the first hint of relief since the readings started going haywire. Fletcher? Owen Fletcher? He pulled up the passenger manifest on his screen, scanning details. Is he the one in the flannel shirt? Older guy, traveling with a kid? Denise confirmed. Ron let out a breath. Tell Mr. Fletcher I'd like to speak with him at his earliest convenience. Don't alarm the other passengers, but make it clear it's important. Denise nodded and disappeared from the monitor. Back in the cabin, Denise approached row 3 with purpose. Vanessa saw her coming and sat up straighter, clearly expecting the flight attendant to address the problem passengers. But Denise walked right past her and stopped at Owen's seat. Mr. Fletcher, she said quietly, leaning down so only he could hear. The captain requests your presence in the cockpit, sir. It's urgent. Owen's expression shifted subtly, years of training kicking in. He glanced at instruments visible from his seat, noting details most passengers wouldn't recognize. How urgent? Denise's eyes told him everything. Very. Owen looked at Iris, weighing options. His daughter was calm now, absorbed in her coloring book, headphones creating a cocoon of peace. He couldn't leave her alone, but if the captain was asking for him specifically, the situation was serious. Denise seemed to read his hesitation. I'll sit with her, Mr. Fletcher. She won't be alone for a second. I promise. Owen studied her face, saw sincerity there, and made his decision. He turned to Iris, gently touching her shoulder to get attention. His hands moved in sign language. "I need to help someone for a few minutes. This nice lady will stay with you." Iris's face showed concern, but she trusted her father completely. "Okay, Daddy, be careful." Owen kissed her forehead and stood. Every eye in business class tracked his movement. Vanessa couldn't resist. "Oh, finally being removed? About time. I was wondering how long it would take for someone to address the situation." Owen didn't even glance at her. He followed Denise toward the cockpit, his gait changing subtly, the shuffle of a tired parent transforming into something more purposeful, more controlled. Vanessa watched him go, a triumphant smile on her face. She turned to Troy and Pauline. "Well, that's that. I imagine they're going to reseat him in economy where he belongs, probably giving him a warning about his daughter's behavior too." Troy nodded. "Good. Maybe it'll teach him something about respecting the premium cabin." They settled back in their seats, satisfied that order had been restored to their world. But their satisfaction was short-lived. The plane gave a sudden, violent shudder. Not turbulence. Something else. Something wrong. The lights flickered briefly, and several passengers gasped. Vanessa's champagne glass slid across her tray table, and she grabbed it before it could fall. "What was that?" Her voice had lost its confident edge. Another shudder, and this time the plane seemed to yaw slightly to the right before correcting. The seatbelt sign dinged on, and Marcus's voice came over the intercom, carefully controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some minor technical difficulties. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." In the cockpit, Owen was already at the instrument panel, eyes scanning readouts with practiced efficiency. Captain Ron had briefed him in 30 seconds flat. "Hydraulic systems 1 and 2 are failing, pressure dropping steadily. If we lose System 3, we lose steering control entirely." Owen's mind was already working through scenarios, pulling from years of experience and training most people didn't know he had. "Fuel status?" Janet answered immediately. 90 minutes at current consumption, less if we have to adjust altitude or speed." Owen's fingers moved across the controls, not touching anything, just mapping systems in his mind. "Nearest alternate airport with adequate runway and emergency capabilities." Ron knew this was a test, knew Owen was assessing whether the captain had already thought through options. "Edwards Air Force Base, 43 minutes northeast, but we'd need military clearance and the approach is complex. Neither Janet nor I have trained for it." Owen nodded once. "I have. I helped design the emergency protocols for civilian aircraft at Edwards." He pulled out his phone, and Ron started to object before remembering who he was dealing with. Owen's clearance level meant different rules applied. Owen pulled up a number from memory and dialed. "Edwards Tower, this is Consultant Fletcher. Authorization code Alpha 739er Tango. I'm aboard commercial flight 2847, declaring in-flight emergency. Hydraulic system failure, need priority landing clearance, and full emergency response." The voice on the other end didn't question, didn't hesitate. "Copy that, Consultant Fletcher. Clearance granted. We have your aircraft on radar. Emergency crews positioning now." Owen handed the phone to Ron. "They'll want to coordinate directly with you for approach details. I'll guide you through the Edwards procedure. It's unconventional, but it's designed exactly for this scenario." Ron took the phone, and Owen could see the captain's hands trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from adrenaline of realizing just how close they'd come to catastrophe. "Mr. Fletcher, we're fortunate you're on this flight." Owen's response was matter-of-fact. "Let's make sure we land safely first. Then we can talk about fortune." He turned to Janet. "I need you to switch to manual hydraulic backup. Here's the sequence." His voice was calm, authoritative, but not overbearing, as he walked her through a procedure so complex it wasn't even in standard training manuals. Janet followed his instructions precisely, her initial skepticism giving way to professional respect as she realized the depth of his knowledge. "System 3 is holding," she reported. "But barely." Owen nodded. "It will hold long enough. We're not going to need it for much longer." Back in the cabin, Denise had taken Owen's seat beside Iris. The little girl was gripping her stuffed rabbit tightly, eyes wide with fear as the plane continued to shudder periodically. Denise had learned basic sign language years ago for a deaf nephew, and she used it now. "Your daddy is helping the pilots. He's very smart." Iris signed back. "I know. Daddy can fix anything." The simple faith in her words made Denise's eyes sting with unexpected tears. The announcement came suddenly, cutting through the nervous murmur of the cabin. But it wasn't Marcus's voice this time. It was Owen's. The man Vanessa had mocked, the father she'd dismissed as beneath notice. His voice was steady, calm, carrying an authority that seemed to fill every corner of the aircraft. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Owen Fletcher speaking from the cockpit. Captain Hayes has asked me to assist with a technical situation that we're experiencing. I'm an FAA, International Aviation Security Consultant, and I'll be helping navigate an alternative landing procedure." The reaction in business class was immediate and visceral. Vanessa's face went white, then red, then white again. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Troy had frozen mid-reach for his drink, hand suspended in air. Pauline looked like she might be sick. Around them, other passengers were pulling out phones, searching Owen Fletcher FAA, and the results were damning. Articles about congressional testimonies, photos of a younger Owen in federal uniform, commendations, awards, a career of service that put every assumption they'd made to shame. But Owen wasn't finished. His voice continued, professional and reassuring. "We're experiencing hydraulic system issues that require us to make a precautionary landing at Edwards Air Force Base instead of Los Angeles. This is purely precautionary, and I want to assure you that we have the situation under control. The approach will be different from a standard landing, steeper, faster deceleration. But it's a procedure I've personally helped develop and execute. Please remain calm, stay seated, and follow all crew instructions." Vanessa's hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together in her lap. The posts she'd made, the mockery, the casual cruelty, it all came flooding back. She pulled up her social media, seeing the posts about Owen and Iris, and her stomach turned. The comments section was already filling up. Someone had connected the dots, had identified Owen from news coverage of aviation incidents. "OMG, you were mocking a federal consultant? This is the guy who helped prevent that security breach last year. He's literally one of the top aviation experts in the country. And you made fun of his deaf daughter? Disgusting." Troy had found the same information. His face had gone grey. He turned to Vanessa, voice barely a whisper. "Do you realize what we've done? That man, he's not just some consultant. He's basically aviation royalty, and we treated him like he was nothing." Pauline was frantically trying to delete her own comments from Vanessa's posts, but screenshots had already been taken, already shared across platforms. The internet moved fast, and their cruelty was being preserved in digital amber. In the cockpit, Owen was guiding Ron through the approach to Edwards. "Reduce speed to 180 knots. Descent rate 1,200 feet per minute. You're going to feel the aircraft wanting to pull right because of the hydraulic imbalance. Don't overcorrect. Small adjustments." Ron's hands were steady now, following Owen's instructions with growing confidence. The military base came into view, the long runway a welcome sight. Owen keyed the radio. "Edwards, we have visual on runway 04. The approach was textbook despite the circumstances. Owen's calm presence seemed to steady everyone in the cockpit. He anticipated every fluctuation, every moment where the damaged systems might fail, and had a response ready. "Flaps to 30. Landing gear down! The plane shuddered as the gear extended, but it locked into place. 100 feet, 50. Maintain approach angle, 20 feet. And now! The wheels touched down harder than a normal landing, but safely. Ron engaged the emergency brakes, and the plane decelerated rapidly, pressing everyone back in their seats. They rolled to a stop with emergency vehicles flanking them, lights flashing. The cabin erupted in applause, but it died quickly as the reality of what had just happened settled over everyone. Owen's voice came over the intercom one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Edwards Air Force Base. Emergency crews are here as a precaution, but we are secure. Well done to everyone for remaining calm. Captain Hayes and his crew executed perfectly. He paused, and when he spoke again, there was warmth in his voice. I need to check on my daughter now. Thank you for your patience. The cockpit door opened, and Owen stepped out. Every eye in the cabin locked on him. The derision, the judgment, the cruel assumptions. All of it hung in the air like smoke. Owen's gaze swept the cabin, landing briefly on Vanessa, Troy, and Pauline. He saw their stricken faces, the horror of realization written clearly there. But he didn't stop. He walked directly to row 3, where Denise stood up to give him his seat back. Iris launched herself into his arms, and he caught her, holding her tight. His hands moved in sign language, gentle and loving. See? I told you. Always safe. Daddy promised. Iris pulled back to look at his face, her small hands signing rapidly. You saved everyone, didn't you? Like a superhero. Owen smiled, a real smile that softened his entire face. Not a superhero, sweetheart, just someone who knows how to help when it's needed. That's all. But Iris shook her head emphatically. That's what superheroes do, Daddy. They help. Owen's throat tightened with emotion, and he simply held her closer. Captain Ron emerged from the cockpit, and the cabin fell silent again. He walked directly to Owen's row, and when he spoke, his voice carried to every passenger. Ladies and gentlemen, before we disembark, I want to formally acknowledge Mr. Owen Fletcher. Owen isn't just a consultant. He's a former Federal Air Marshal with 8 years of service. He's an international aviation security consultant, one of only 12 in the United States with his level of clearance. He's briefed Congress, developed protocols used by every major airline, and has prevented incidents that most of us will never know about. Ron paused, making sure every word landed. The hydraulic failure we experienced was catastrophic. Without Mr. Fletcher's expertise, his guidance, and the emergency protocols he literally helped write, this landing would have been very different. Everyone in this cabin is going home tonight because of him. Mr. Fletcher, on behalf of the crew and every passenger, thank you for your service to this country and for saving our lives today. The applause that followed was different this time, deeper, more sincere, tinged with shame from some quarters. Owen acknowledged it with a brief nod, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. Captain Hayes and his crew deserve the credit. They executed flawlessly under pressure. But Ron shook his head. You're too modest. Always have been, according to your file. He addressed the cabin again. We'll need to remain here while the aircraft is inspected. The airline is arranging transportation and accommodations. Please be patient with the crew as we work through the logistics. He returned to the cockpit to coordinate with ground personnel. As the reality settled fully over the business class cabin, Vanessa remained frozen in her seat, her perfect composure shattered. The phone in her lap showed her social media feed, and it was brutal. Her follower count was dropping in real time. Comments flooded in, most of them scathing. Screenshots of her posts about Owen and Iris were being shared with captions like, "This is what privilege looks like," and "Imagine being this wrong about someone." Her reputation, the thing she valued most, was destroyed in 90 minutes. Vanessa stood on shaking legs and approached Owen's row. Every step felt like walking through deep water. When she reached him, She couldn't meet his eyes at first.
"Mr. Fletcher,"
she began, voice cracking.
I don't know how to."
The words dissolved. She tried again.
"I'm so sorry. Everything I said, about you, about Iris, I was horrible, cruel, and I was so completely, utterly wrong."
She finally forced herself to look at him. "You just saved my life, and I spent this entire flight making yours miserable." Owen's expression was unreadable. He didn't rush to accept her apology or make her feel better. He simply looked at her, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. "You were scared," he said finally. "People say things when they're scared. Do things they regret." Vanessa shook her head violently.
"No, I was cruel before I was scared. I was cruel because I'm broken inside somehow, because I measure people by all the wrong things, because I forgot that being kind doesn't cost anything." She turned to Iris, who was watching the exchange with wide eyes. Vanessa knelt down, bringing herself to the child's level. She'd learned a few signs over the years from a brief attempt at being cultured, and she used them now, clumsy but sincere. "I'm sorry.
You're beautiful. Brave." Iris looked at her father, and Owen nodded permission. Iris signed back, and Owen translated quietly. "She says thank you. She says people make mistakes. Her daddy taught her everyone deserves second chances." Vanessa's composure crumbled entirely. She sobbed openly, not caring about mascara running down her face or the dozens of eyes watching. "She forgives me? After everything?" Owen's voice was gentle but firm. "She's 8. She still believes people can be better than their worst moments. I hope she never loses that belief, but it'll be harder to keep if the world keeps proving her wrong." The implicit challenge in his words was clear. Be better. Do better. Troy and Pauline had approached as well, faces etched with shame. "Mr. Fletcher," Troy began, then stopped, unable to find adequate words. "We were inexcusably rude. To you and to your daughter. I said terrible things. I'm ashamed." Pauline nodded, tears tracking through her makeup. "I've spent my whole life judging people, and today I learned just how wrong that judgment can be. I'm sorry, doesn't seem like enough." Owen considered them both. "You're right. Sorry isn't enough, but it's a start. What matters is what you do next." He shifted Iris slightly in his arms. "My daughter heard everything you said. She's the one who had to sit there and absorb your cruelty. She's the one who deserves your apology most." Both Troy and Pauline turned to Iris. Troy signed awkwardly. "Sorry. Very sorry." Pauline simply said, "You're a wonderful little girl, and your father is the bravest man I've ever met. Please forgive us." Iris looked at each of them, expression serious beyond her years. Then she signed, and Owen translated. "She says she forgives you too, but she wants you to know that being deaf doesn't make her less. Being different doesn't make anyone less." Denise approached quietly. "Mr. Fletcher, I have Captain Hayes on the line. He said there's someone who wants to speak with you." She handed him a phone. Owen took it, listening for a moment. Then his expression changed. A smile, genuine and warm, broke across his face. "Dr. Morrison?" "Yes, we're fine. A bit of a detour, but we're okay." He listened, and the smile grew. "You saw the news already? That was fast. You want to do what? Move her to the top of the trial list?" Owen's voice became thick with emotion. "Dr. Morrison, you don't have to. I understand. Yes, we can be there tomorrow morning. Thank you. Thank you so much." He hung up and looked at Iris, eyes bright. His hands moved in sign language, fast and excited. Dr. Morrison called. He saw what happened. He's putting you first for the new hearing technology. Tomorrow morning. We're going to help your hearing, sweetheart." Iris's face lit up with joy, and she threw her arms around Owen's neck. Ground crew began helping passengers disembark. The airline had arranged buses to take everyone to temporary accommodations, with flights to Los Angeles scheduled for the following morning. As people gathered belongings, many approached Owen. Some wanted to shake his hand. Others just wanted to say, "Thank you." He accepted it all with quiet grace, never seeking the spotlight, always redirecting praise to the flight crew or deflecting entirely. When the base commander arrived, a distinguished officer named Willis, with silver hair and sharp eyes, he made a beeline for Owen. "Fletcher, didn't expect to see you under these circumstances." He shook Owen's hand warmly. "Hell of a job up there. That approach was textbook. Your textbook." Willis noticed Iris and his expression softened. "And this must be the young lady I've heard about." "Mom!" He offered Iris a small salute, which delighted her. "Your father is one of the finest officers I've ever had the privilege of working with." Willis turned back to Owen. "I'm putting you and your daughter in VIP quarters for the night. It's the least I can do." Owen started to protest, but Willis held up a hand. "Non-negotiable, Fletcher. Besides, you're technically still on the consultant roster, which means you're practically government property when you're doing this kind of work." He grinned. "Consider it back pay for all those times you helped us out and refused compensation." Owen finally smiled. "All right, Commander. Thank you." As they prepared to leave the aircraft, Vanessa approached one final time. "Mr. Fletcher, before you go, if there's anything I can do, my company, my resources, anything at all." Owen studied her for a long moment. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a slightly crumpled flyer. "Dr. Morrison runs a program for children who can't afford hearing technology. He's applying for a major grant. He needs public awareness, letters of support, visibility." He handed her the flyer. "If your platform could help raise awareness for kids like Iris, that would mean something." Vanessa took the flyer like it was made of gold. "Consider it done. I'll make it my priority, my main campaign." She paused. "You could ask for anything: money, connections, publicity for yourself, and you ask for other children." Owen's response was simple. "Because it's not about me. It never has been." He took Iris's hand. "Ready, sweetheart?" Iris nodded, and together they walked off the plane, leaving behind a cabin full of people forever changed by what they'd witnessed. 3 weeks later, Owen and Iris boarded a flight from Los Angeles back to New York. The airline had offered first-class seats with profuse apologies, but Owen had politely declined. "Business class is fine. It's what we booked originally." As they settled into their seats, Iris pulled out her coloring book. But this time was different. This time, when the flight attendant made announcements, Iris could hear them through her new hearing aid. Her eyes went wide, and she looked at Owen with wonder. She signed and spoke simultaneously, voice still learning but growing stronger. "Daddy, I can hear her!" Owen felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I know, sweetheart. It's wonderful, isn't it?" She nodded enthusiastically and returned to her coloring, occasionally looking up to marvel at sounds she'd never properly heard before. A businessman in an expensive suit took the seat across the aisle. He glanced at Owen's flannel shirt and started to make a face, but then he did a double take. "Wait, are you Owen Fletcher? From the Edwards Landing?" Owen nodded, already anticipating where this was going. But the man's reaction surprised him. "My daughter is deaf. I saw the news coverage and I learned about the hearing program. We've applied. I just wanted to say thank you. Not just for the flight, but for bringing attention to something that matters." Owen shook the man's hand. "The credit goes to a lot of people. Dr. Morrison, the foundation that funded the program, even someone who learned to use her platform for good instead of judgment." The businessman nodded. "Growth is possible. Change is possible. You proved that in more ways than one. As the plane took off, Iris pressed her face to the window, listening to engine sounds with fascination. Owen watched her, heart full in a way it hadn't been since Carolyn died. They'd made this trip for Iris's hearing, and they'd succeeded beyond his wildest hopes. But something else had happened too. Through the worst of human behavior, through cruelty and judgment, had come unexpected growth. Not just for Vanessa, but for so many others who'd witnessed what happened. The flight was smooth and uneventful, exactly how Owen preferred it. As they began their descent into New York, the pilot came on the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our approach to JFK. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge a passenger we're honored to have on board. Owen Fletcher is with us today. Many of you may recognize his name from the Edwards Air Force Base landing 3 weeks ago. Mr. Fletcher, on behalf of the crew, thank you for your service and for everything you do to keep us safe in the skies." There was applause, genuine and warm, but Owen simply nodded his acknowledgement and turned his attention to Iris, making sure her seatbelt was secure. When they landed, smooth and perfect, Iris clapped her hands. "Good landing, Daddy." Owen smiled. "The best landings are the boring ones, sweetheart. The ones where nothing exciting happens." She considered this, then signed and spoke. "But exciting things can be good too. We met new friends. You helped people. I got my new ears." She touched her hearing aid gently. Owen pulled her close. "You're right. Sometimes exciting things turn out to be exactly what we needed." In the terminal, Owen's father-in-law James was waiting. He swept Iris into a hug, then embraced Owen. "Saw you on the news, son. Carolyn would have been so proud." Owen felt the familiar ache at his late wife's name. "She would have told me I was fussing too much and that the pilots deserved all the credit," James laughed. "That sounds exactly like her. But she'd be proud anyway." As they walked through the terminal, Owen noticed people recognizing him. Some pointed discreetly, others smiled or nodded respect. A few approached to shake his hand or say thank you. Owen accepted it all with the same quiet grace he'd shown on the plane, never comfortable with attention, but understanding it came with what he'd done. But what struck him most were the people who approached to talk about the hearing program, about their own deaf children or relatives, about the hope the news coverage had given them. One woman, tears streaming down her face, pressed a note into his hand. "My son is deaf. We couldn't afford the new technology. But because of the awareness from your story, we got into the program. He's getting his hearing aid next month. You didn't just save people on that plane, you saved my son's future." Owen read the note, his own eyes stinging. This was why everything had happened the way it did. Not for his recognition, but so that children like Iris could have opportunities they deserved. Outside, the New York air was crisp with the promise of autumn. James loaded their bags into the car while Iris chatted about all the new sounds she was discovering. Owen stood for a moment, breathing in the familiar scent of the city, feeling the weight and lightness of the past weeks settling into place. His phone buzzed, a text from Vanessa. "The foundation hit its first quarter goal. 50 children are receiving hearing aids, including 12 who couldn't have afforded them otherwise. Thank you for giving me the chance to be part of something real." Owen typed back simply. "Thank you for taking the chance." He looked at Iris, buckled safely in her car seat, signing animatedly to her grandfather about the airplane ride. He thought about Carolyn, about the life they'd planned versus the life he was living. It wasn't what they'd expected. It was harder in many ways, colored by loss and challenge and moments of cruelty from strangers. But it was also full of unaffected grace, of people learning to be better, of small victories that rippled outward into changed lives. James started the car. "Ready to go home?" Owen settled into the passenger seat, glancing back at Iris one more time. She caught his eye and signed,
Love you, Daddy. Then added in her growing voice, Love you. Owen signed back and spoke the words aloud. Love you too, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know. As they pulled into traffic, joining the river of cars heading into the city, Owen felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of purpose. Carolyn used to say that the quietest lives often carried the loudest love. He'd never fully understood it until now. His life was quiet by choice, measured in bedtime stories and sign language conversations, and small moments of connection with his daughter. But the love in it, the love he had for Iris, the love that drove him to serve others, the love that allowed him to offer grace even to those who'd been cruel, that love was loud enough to change lives, loud enough to turn a CEO's platform from vanity to purpose. The New York skyline rose before them, steel and glass catching the late afternoon sun. Somewhere in one of those buildings, Vanessa was working on her next campaign for the foundation. Somewhere in the city, people were talking about judgment and grace, about the danger of assumptions and the power of second chances. And somewhere, tucked in the back seat of a modest sedan, a little girl with a stuffed rabbit and a new hearing aid was discovering the symphony of the world around her. Owen watched the city pass by and thought about altitude. Not the physical kind, measured in feet above sea level, but the metaphorical kind, the altitude of the human spirit. The height we reach when we choose kindness over cruelty, grace over judgment, service over self-interest. On that flight 3 weeks ago, at 30,000 feet, he'd saved lives with his expertise. But maybe the real saving happened in the days and weeks that followed, when people like Vanessa chose to rise to a different altitude altogether. As they turned onto their street, familiar brownstones lining the block, Iris began to sing. It was off-key and halting, her voice still learning to match the sounds she could now hear more clearly, but it was the most beautiful thing Owen had ever heard. She was singing a song Carolyn used to hum, one that Iris had only known through vibrations and memory until now. James caught Owen's eye in the rearview mirror, and they shared a moment of understanding. This was it. This was everything. They pulled up to the house, and Iris was already unbuckling, eager to get inside and tell her grandmother about every detail of the trip. Owen gathered the bags, moving with the unhurried efficiency of someone who'd learned that life's most important moments rarely announce themselves. They hide in ordinary afternoons, in little girls singing off-key, in the choice to be kind when cruelty would be easier. James held the door open. "Welcome home, son." Owen stepped inside, Iris's laughter echoing from the kitchen where she'd found her grandmother. And in that moment, with the sounds of family surrounding him and the weight of the past week settling into wisdom, Owen Fletcher understood something profound. The best flights weren't always the smooth ones. Sometimes they were the turbulent ones that forced you to remember what really mattered, what you were really made of, what you were really flying toward. Home wasn't just a place. It was the people who believed in you when others didn't, the love that held steady when everything else shook, the quiet courage to be exactly who you were, flannel shirt and all.